I let my brother stay in my apartment after his divorce. No rent, no rules, just help getting back on his feet. One day I came home to my locks changed and a note on the door that said, "New leaseholder. Take it up with the landlord." He'd claimed squatter rights while I was out of town. My parents said, "He's had a hard life. Just be the bigger person." I slept in my car for 2 weeks. Then I found something in his trash, my journal. The one I'd hidden under my bed since I was 16. That's when I called a lawyer. I'm not the kind of guy who makes drama. I work, I pay my rent, I mind my own business. But a few months ago, my life got completely screwed up. Not because I made some dumb mistake. Not because I trusted the wrong person. But because I tried to do the right thing for someone who didn't deserve it. That person was my brother. His name's Dean. He's 2 years younger than me, and growing up, he was always the one causing trouble. Getting kicked out of class, getting caught with weed in the garage, throwing parties when our parents were out. Me. I stayed in my lane. Did my homework. Got a job right out of college. Moved into my own place in Tacoma, just outside the city. Dean married young. Thought it would fix him. It didn't. She left him 6 years later. Took the house, the car, and their savings. No kids, thank God. He called me one night after the split. I could barely understand him. He was drunk and crying and saying he had nowhere to go. I told him he could stay with me. Rent-free. No pressure. Just until he got back on his feet. That was my first mistake. He moved in the next morning. Showed up with trash bags full of clothes, a cracked TV, and a half-dead Xbox. I made space in the living room. Gave him blankets, a key, my Netflix login. At first, I thought he just needed time. He was quiet. Slept a lot. Drank more than he should have. But I didn't say anything. The guy just lost everything. I figured he needed room to breathe. But after a few weeks, things started to get weird. He stopped pretending to look for work. He'd stay up all night gaming, sleep all day, and leave empty beer bottles all over the kitchen. He used my shampoo, ate my groceries, and always left dishes in the sink. I'd come home from work and find strangers in the apartment, his new friends, playing poker on my coffee table or watching fights on my TV. One guy even crashed in the hallway one night, blocking the bathroom door. I said something once. Dean laughed in my face. Relax. You're always so uptight. I wanted to kick him out. I really did. But I kept thinking, he's my brother. If I give up on him, who else does he have? Big mistake. In February, I had to travel to Denver for 5 days. Work was sending me to some management training. I told Dean a few weeks ahead. Gave him the dates. Left the rent and bills paid up, even stocked the fridge before I left. The flight back landed late on a Sunday. I got to my building around 10 p.m. Tired as hell. Just wanted to shower and crash. But my key didn't work. I tried it 3 times. It wouldn't even go all the way in. I knocked. Nothing. Knocked again, harder. I heard footsteps inside. Someone moved past the door. I knocked again. Silence. That's when I saw the note taped to the door. Scrawled in black marker on lined paper. New leaseholder. Take it up with the landlord. I felt sick. I called Dean. Straight to voicemail. I texted him, "What the hell is this?" No reply. I stood there, in the hallway, with my suitcase in one hand and my work laptop in the other, staring at my own door like I was a stranger. The next morning I went to the leasing office. The manager, Al, looked nervous the second I walked in. Hey, yeah. So Dean came in last week. Said you'd left. Said he'd been staying full-time, and you moved out. Had 2 guys with him to confirm it. What? I said. That's a lie. I was in Denver for 5 days. He showed us mail in his name. Claimed you abandoned the lease. He asked to take over. I'm on the lease. Al said. He said he was covering rent. Is he? Al hesitated. He brought in a money order. For 1 month. That was it. 1 payment and 2 random dudes backing him up, and somehow I was erased from my own lease. You'll have to take it to court, Al said. I didn't have a couch to sleep on. None of my friends had room. I didn't want to go to my parents, they lived 6 hours away, and we weren't exactly close anymore. I ended up sleeping in my car. 2 weeks. I parked behind a CVS and a library, depending on which one felt safer. Used the gym to shower. Ate granola bars and fast food. Went to work every day like nothing was wrong. I felt humiliated. Betrayed. I kept waiting for Dean to come to his senses. To call me. To say sorry. He never did. I called my parents. They knew something was up from the tone of my voice. When I told them everything, they didn't even act surprised. He's had a rough life, my mom said. He stole my place. He's your brother. He's always looked up to you. He locked me out. You've always been the stronger one. Just be the bigger person. I hung up. I didn't call them again. 2 days later, I drove by the building again. I don't know why. Some part of me still couldn't believe it. I parked down the street and waited until night. I knew which trash bins belonged to our unit. I waited until everyone inside was asleep. Then I saw them. Black trash bags. My trash bags. The ones I'd packed before I left, he must have tossed them. I opened one up. Clothes. Books. My stuff. Ruined. Then I saw it. My journal. It was a plain black spiral notebook. I used to write in it when I was a teenager. Angry stuff. Sad stuff. Private stuff. It had been hidden under my bed, inside a taped-up box. He found it. He dug it out. And he threw it away. That was it. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just stared at that notebook, holding it in my hands, smelling like old beer and trash. I stood there for a long time. Then I got in my car, drove to the nearest Starbucks, connected to Wi-Fi, and found a lawyer. And now? Now I'm going to take everything back. I found a guy named Mark Brennan. Lawyer. Specializes in tenant law, civil disputes, stuff like that. His office was small, squeezed between a vape shop and a pizza place, but he listened. Really listened. When I told him what happened, he just said, "This is exactly the kind of case I like." He explained something I hadn't known. In Washington, squatters' rights don't mean you get to steal someone's lease because they went out of town for 5 days. What Dean did was called constructive eviction, and it was illegal. Problem was, proving it meant going to court. It wouldn't be fast. It wouldn't be easy. But it was possible. Mark helped me file a lawsuit against Dean for wrongful eviction, theft, destruction of personal property, and illegal occupation. He also filed for an emergency injunction to freeze the lease from being modified further. We included an itemized list of everything Dean tossed: electronics, clothes, furniture, sentimental items. Including the journal. He raised an eyebrow when I mentioned that one. "You want to put that in the claim?" He read it, I said. Then he threw it out. Mark didn't ask more questions. He just nodded. In the meantime, I stayed in a cheap motel. It cost more than I could afford, but I wasn't sleeping in my car anymore. I ate peanut butter crackers and instant ramen to save money. I told work I was dealing with a family emergency, which wasn't a lie. I kept my head down. A week later, Mark got a hearing scheduled. I was shocked at how fast it moved. The court granted us a temporary order preventing Dean from making changes to the lease or selling off any of my stuff. We'd still need a full trial to get it reversed, but it was a start. Then something else happened. Mark got a call from Dean's lawyer. Apparently, Dean had hired someone too, some guy named Wallace. He wasn't cheap. Which made me wonder, how was Dean paying for a lawyer? He didn't have a job. He'd told everyone he was broke. Unless. That's when I remembered something. My safe. It wasn't anything fancy, just a metal lockbox I kept under my bed. Inside was my passport, some spare cash I'd been saving for a trip, a couple of childhood photos, and my coin collection. Nothing major, but worth maybe a few thousand altogether. I never saw it in the trash. I called Mark. Can we add theft to the claim? There's a safe. It's missing. He made a note. The next morning, I got a text. From Dean. You could have just talked to me. You didn't need to go nuclear. I stared at the screen. It was the first time he'd contacted me in over a month. I didn't respond. That night, I got another one. You think this is gonna fix anything? You think you're gonna win? Then, 5 minutes later, I read your little notebook. You're a real piece of work, man. That one hit different. I didn't sleep much that night. The next morning, I found my car door open. Someone had broken in. Ripped open the glove box, slashed the seat, and pissed on the driver's floor mat. The cops wrote it up, but there were no cameras. No witnesses. No proof. But I knew it was him. That night, I checked my bank account. $200 were missing. I dug into the transaction history. Someone had used my debit card number at a gas station 5 blocks from my old apartment. It was still linked to an old Amazon account. Dean had my card info. I called Mark again. It's getting dirty, I said. He just said, good. Now we hit back harder. Mark filed an amendment to our case. Added identity theft, property theft, harassment, and intentional emotional distress. It made the case heavier, but also messier. The court scheduled the full hearing for 6 weeks out. Until then, it was a waiting game. And during that time, things got worse. First, someone slashed my motel room tires. Both of them. Clean cuts, sidewalls shredded. Cost me almost $500 to replace them. I didn't even bother calling the cops this time. I already knew the answer. Then I got a letter from a credit card company. Thank you for opening your account with us. Except I didn't. Dean had used my information to open a credit line. Spent over $800 at a pawn shop and liquor store before I caught it. I froze all my accounts, changed every password, and filed another police report. I knew what he was doing. He was trying to wear me down. He thought if he made life hard enough, I'd drop the case and disappear. But he didn't know me anymore. A week before the hearing, something unexpected happened. Mark called me and said, "You need to sit down." I did. Dean offered a settlement. What? He's panicking. He's willing to walk away from the lease, drop the counterclaim, and let you recover whatever's left in the apartment. He wants you to sign an agreement not to pursue criminal charges. That was a red flag. He's hiding something, I said. Mark agreed. He's scared of discovery. Something in that apartment or in his financial trail is worse than what we already know. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I asked Mark for one more thing. Can we get a court order to inspect the apartment before trial? He said we could try. We did. And it got approved. 2 days later, I walked back into my apartment for the first time in almost 2 months, with a court officer and locksmith at my side. Dean wasn't there. He'd been served notice and told to vacate during the inspection window. The place was trashed. Couch ripped open. Holes in the drywall. Food rotting in the sink. Cigarette burns on the table I'd owned since college. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what we found in the bedroom. My bedroom. He'd moved in there. Rearranged everything. Hung his clothes in my closet. His shoes were on my shelf. And under the bed, taped to the bottom of the wooden slats. Just like I used to hide mine, we found a black spiral notebook. But it wasn't mine. It was his. I shouldn't have read it. But I did. Inside were pages of notes. About me. My passwords. My habits. My phone PIN. He'd even written down things I'd said over the years, my old street address, my banking questions, my social security number. It was like a damn profile. Like I was a mark. Mark called it what it was, premeditation. That changed everything. We added fraud and malicious intent to the claim. Mark said, "We don't settle now. We bury him." But I still didn't understand one thing: why now? Why go this far? Why destroy everything? Then 2 days before trial, I got a phone call. Not from Dean. From his ex-wife. "Are you the brother?" she asked. I said I was. She told me Dean had forged her signature once before. On a tax form. Lied to the IRS. Stole from her mom. She said she only found out because a lawyer caught it. She tried to warn people after the divorce but nobody listened. She gave me copies of the documents she kept. Then she said something I'll never forget. "He doesn't just ruin people. He plans it. He studies them." It all clicked. This wasn't about my apartment. It never was. It was about control. And now I was ready to take it back. The day of the trial, I wore the only decent suit I had left. It didn't fit right anymore. I'd lost weight from stress, sleepless nights, living on garbage food and hate. But I showed up. So did Dean. He looked smug when he walked in. Had a new haircut, flashy belt, grinned like the whole thing was a joke. Like he still thought he could talk his way out of this. His lawyer kept patting his arm, whispering to him. I sat across the room with Mark, quiet, focused. The courtroom was small. No jury. Just a judge who looked like she'd been through this kind of nonsense before. Dean's lawyer tried to spin the usual BS. Claimed I abandoned the apartment. Said Dean had nowhere else to go. Said we had a verbal agreement. That I gave up my rights by staying away. Then Mark stood up. He dropped everything. Photos of the trashed apartment. Screenshots of Dean's text threats. My police reports. My stolen bank transactions. Then, the notebook, the one with all my personal info copied out in Dean's handwriting. Page after page. Dean's lawyer tried to object, but it was too late. The judge looked right at Dean and asked, "Did you write this?" He didn't answer. "Do you deny using his identity to open accounts and make purchases?" Still nothing. "Do you deny locking your brother out of his legal residence and throwing away his property?" He shrugged. He left. That was the last thing he said. The judge ruled in my favor. Dean was ordered to pay me over $38,000 in damages, rent, stolen property, identity theft, emotional distress, legal fees. His lease was cancelled on the spot. The court gave me access back to the unit and a sheriff's escort to remove whatever was still mine. Dean stood there like someone pulled the floor out from under him. But that wasn't the end. Because Mark had already filed a separate complaint with the local DA. Based on the evidence and testimony, they opened a criminal case against Dean for fraud and identity theft. He was arrested 2 weeks later. He tried to make a deal, claimed he was mentally unwell, that he didn't know what he was doing. But there were too many records. Too much damage. He pled guilty to reduced charges but still got 9 months in county jail, 3 years probation, and was flagged by multiple financial institutions. He can't even open a PayPal now without a manual review. And me? It took a long time to rebuild. I found a new apartment. Started over with cheap furniture and a hollow feeling I couldn't shake for months. I had nightmares for a while. Not about Dean hurting me, but about trusting someone again. My parents didn't take it well. They begged me not to press charges. Said I'd ruined his life. My mom cried and said I should have forgiven him. My dad called me cold. So I told them the truth. I told them about the notebook. About the things Dean had written about them too. How he planned to borrow money in their names next. How they weren't victims, they were next in line. They haven't called me since. And maybe that's for the best. I've made peace with it. Not because I won. But because I didn't lose who I was to protect someone who never once protected me. Dean didn't just take my apartment. He took my trust. My comfort. My name. But I took back my dignity. And he'll never get near it again.